All right, so we can start, right? Hi everyone, I'm excited that today we welcome our special guest, Cameron Huddleston. Cameron, hello, hi, welcome to our show.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
It's great to have you here with us because when I was looking for information, how far away is Nashville from Prague, it's basically 7,700 kilometers or 4,800 miles. So we are really glad that technology is working right now and that we can bring our audience expert and an author like you, Cameron, because when I was surfing on the internet, I couldn't find a lot of information about how to talk our parents about the money, which we'll discuss today. So your book is really like unique and shines like a light into the tunnel. So thank you very much for that. And maybe let's just jump into it. And my first question is really, what was your motivation to write about the book and about talking finance with our family and parents?
Well, you're right. There's not much out there on this topic. And I think in large part because it is such a taboo topic. In general, people don't like talking about money. At least that's the case in the United States. I know in other countries, the feeling's pretty similar. You know, it's just not something people feel comfortable discussing. And when it comes to talking to your parents about their financial situation, their money situation, that can be even more difficult because it's a child talking to a parent. And the parent might think it's inappropriate for a kid, even an adult kid, to be asking those sort of questions. But I will tell you from personal experience and from my experience as a financial journalist that there will come a time when every adult child will have to get involved with his or her parents' finances, either while the parent is still alive, if they have to become a caregiver or help that parent out financially. And when your parents die, you have to deal with what they left behind. If you don't have these conversations before there's that emergency and you have to help out your parents before they die, there might not be things in place to make the whole process easier. And I discovered this myself with my mother, actually, and my father too. My father died at the age of 61 without a will. He was in a second marriage, and it was a shock to me that he didn't have a will because he was an attorney, a lawyer, and this is what he did as an attorney. One of the things he did was write wills for other people, yet he did not have his own, and that made things difficult trying to figure out, who got what that he left behind. And then my mother, when she was 65 years old, she was diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease because she was living on her own. I knew that I was going to have to be the one to step in and care for her. I do have a sister, but she lives several states away from us. And so I had to not only help her with care, but help her with her finances. And I had not had detailed conversations with her about her finances before she started losing her memory. And that made it very difficult to have those conversations because at that point, we weren't talking about a what if scenario. Mom, what if something happened and I needed to help you out? We were already facing an emergency. And so those conversations meant pointing out to her that I thought she needed help from me. And that's where it can get awkward, is having to point out to your parents that they do need that help and they might not be capable anymore. If we had had a plan in place already, it would have been easier to step in and say, hey, Mom, remember that plan we made? Well, I think it's time now to start acting on it. Fortunately, we did meet with an attorney and update all of her legal documents. And in the United States, in order to make financial decisions for someone, in order to make financial transactions for someone, you have to be appointed what is called a power of attorney. And so we did that for my mother. She named me and my sister her power of attorney so that I was able to talk with the bank, to sign checks for her, to help her pay her bills. She also named me her healthcare power of attorney to make medical decisions for her, which is so important because the doctors wouldn't have spoken to me. The hospital wouldn't speak to me. And so having those documents in place before her Alzheimer's progressed to a point where she was no longer competent was so important, because in the United States, and I'm assuming anywhere in the world, to sign legal documents, you had to be mentally competent. If you wait too long and your parents are no longer competent, you can't get those documents. And here, I would have had to go through the court system to be able to make financial decisions for her and healthcare decisions for her. And that's essentially like putting your parent on trial and saying, Mom is no longer competent enough to make these decisions. It can be very expensive, very lengthy process. And I'm fortunate that she was willing to meet with an attorney, and we got those documents updated in her very early stages of dementia while she was still competent enough. But I wrote this book, though, because a lot of people don't realize this. They don't realize that these legal documents need to be in place. They don't realize that it's so much easier to have these conversations before there's an emergency, and you have to have them. And you have so many more options. It's so much easier to plan for all those issues that might come up. And even if you never have to get involved with your parents' finances while they're alive, if they die without the will, family members could end up fighting over who gets what, and it can become a huge nightmare. And I don't think anyone wants to do that to their loved ones, but people don't always realize how important that will is and how much of a hassle it's going to be for their loved ones if they die without that will. So and all the reasons I wrote the book.
And I also think that one of the reasons can be that we as a young people or people in the productive age doesn't even have a financial plan for us, or aren't thinking like long term about our finances. So I can't even imagine how someone can even figure out that I should talk about with my parents about money. So
right.
So because as you said, it can be a little bit awkward, right? It can be kind of uncomfortable situation. So how to start those conversations? What should be the first step? Like to maybe come to the parents and say, hey, I think we should do something about your finance, or how would you do it?
So the first step is actually to talk to your siblings, your brothers and sisters, if you have any, because you don't want to start talking to mom and dad without talking to your siblings, because you don't want your siblings to think that you are going behind their back, that you're trying to get in mom and dad's favor so that they're going to give everything to you.
That's a good point. That's a very good point. I didn't even think about it. Yeah, that's a good one.
So you want to sit down with your, if you have a brother or sister, and figure out who's going to start the conversation. Is it going to be all of you or just one of you? How do you want to start it? When do you want to do it? And I will tell you, these conversations should not happen during family holiday meals. So, Christmas, Easter, whatever holidays your family might get together to celebrate, you don't want to do it then, because there might be other people there who don't need to be part of the conversation.
Yeah.
And of course, if, you're drinking wine and celebrating and, someone's had a little too much to drink, the conversation can get really bad quickly if there's been a little too much wine consumed at that family dinner. So don't do it during the family meal. At least wait until the day after, or, another time when you and your siblings can sit down and calmly have the conversation with your parents. There are a variety of ways you can start it. If you're young, you can ask your parents for advice, which might sound like the opposite of what you're trying to go for here. But it's a very natural way to do it. So like you said, you're young, you're starting out, maybe you don't know much about your own finances. You go to your parents and say, hey, mom and dad, I need help. I need to understand more about this or that. What have you done? What that you can share with me so that I know how to start making my own financial plan. That is going to give you insight into what sort of planning they have done. And, I know in Europe, you have a much better social system, a much better system of pensions and healthcare than we do in the United States. And for the most part in the United States, people are now having to save for retirement on their own. And so, of course, here it's important to find out if your parents have retirement savings, because
the same is here. Yeah, the same is here, basically.
So if they don't, guess what? They might have to rely on you for support in retirement, and that's going to affect your finances. That's definitely going to affect your finances if you have to support your parents when they're older. So, asking them what they've done can be a good way to start the conversation. You can share a story about maybe a friend whose parent died without a will, or a friend whose parent had Alzheimer's and they had to care for that parent, and you'd like to make a plan so that it's going to be easier for all of you if that situation arises. You could use the current events. Hey, mom and dad, I'm really nervous about the coronavirus. It makes me scared about my health. It makes me scared about your health. What things have you done? Again, getting to that planning. What have you done to be prepared? Do you have that will? Do you have any legal documents that would allow me to make medical decisions for you if I had to? Savings that you can rely on if something happens. Again, kind of easing into the conversation. I think the worst way to do it would be to say, hey, mom and dad, let's talk about your will.
Your money.
Your money. Let's talk about your money and how much of it you're leaving to me. Because the conversation is not supposed to be about you and what you're getting. It's about looking out for your parents' best interest. And this is what you want to highlight. I'm concerned about you. I want to know what your wishes are so I can follow through with them. I want to be able to help you if you ever need help.
That's very good. Thank you very much for this. But I guess there are many blocks in minds or many fears of our parents about this little bit like uncomfortable situation. So if we can name the main reasons why they don't want to talk about it.
Okay, so they might not want to talk about money because they think it's a conversation you shouldn't have, especially with your children. They might be embarrassed about their financial situation. Maybe they're not prepared for retirement. Maybe they might think that they're going to have to count on you for support, but they don't want to admit that. And so bringing this up might make them feel uncomfortable in sharing information with you because they don't want to feel like they're being a burden on you. The conversation also brings up the topic of aging and death. And I know a lot of people don't want to talk about death. They don't want to think about it. They don't want to have to get a will because in their mind, once they have a will, that's it. They're going to die, which is not true. I have a will and I've actually updated it and I'm still alive. So writing a will does not mean that you are going to die tomorrow. What it means is that when you do die, you have a plan. But I know that death is a very uncomfortable topic for a lot of people. And so if you can recognize the reasons your parent might be reluctant to talk, if you know that they don't like the idea of talking about death, then you don't want to start out the conversation by talking about a will. You might want to talk about something that's easier for them to discuss, such as, hey, mom and dad, what is life going to look like for you when you're no longer working? What are your plans for retirement? If you know that they don't have a lot of money to support them in retirement, then maybe that's not what you want to discuss first, because that's going to be harder for them to discuss. So identify why they might be unwilling to have this conversation, what it is in particular, and avoid approaching it that way. Find another way to start the conversation that's not going to make them uncomfortable.
Cameron, what is your, let's say, plan? If you already told us that you have kind of will or something like that. So do you have any thoughts about your personal situation?
I do. I actually, I think about it a lot. Like I said, I have a will. My husband has a will, and we have actually gone through the process of having a will written twice, because we had our third child after our first will was written. So we needed to update it to include him in our will. We also name a guardian who will take care of our children if something happens to us. And we actually changed our guardian from the first time we wrote our will to the second time we chose someone else. We have named power of attorneys, people who can make financial decisions for us if we can't. We have the healthcare power of attorney. We have, my husband and I are both saving for retirement. We have actually special savings account through his work to help pay for our medical care. We have also looked into, in America, we have insurance that can help pay for long-term care, which is care that you would need if you can no longer take care of yourself physically. And so, like in my mom's case, she has Alzheimer's disease. She needs long-term care. For a while, she was living with us and I was caring for her, but her needs were so great that it got to the point where she needed to have professional care. Be in a place where they could be there 24 hours a day. And so we have insurance in America that can help pay for that care. It's not cheap. In fact, it's very expensive. And so, my husband and I have looked into it. We've decided we're going to wait until we're a little bit older to get it. But we've been talking about these things. We have a plan. I mean, we've even talked to our children about our older children. I have a 15-year-old, a 13-year-old, and an 8-year-old. And my 2 daughters, we've already discussed with them who's going to take care of them if something happens to us, and if we die, what we want done with our bodies. We've told our kids that, just so that it's a comfortable conversation. It's not taboo in our family. We want our kids to know that they can talk to us about money issues. They can talk to us about death issues. They can talk to us about aging. We don't want it to be an awkward conversation in our family. So we talk openly about it all of the time.
You are setting the example. So that's nice. That's nice to hear. And you mentioned one thing, that parents can feel that they will be burdened in future, that you need to take care of them, or maybe they don't want to go to those nurses' house, So, and I feel like this is a big topic. This is one of the biggest topics in this particular thing. So what do you think about this? How to overcome this situation that our parents want to be taken care of, don't want to go to the nurse's house, but on the other hand, we feel like we have so much responsibilities and all other things that maybe kids doesn't see that way. What do you think about this?
It's probably the most uncomfortable conversation you can have, because no one wants to end up in a nursing home. People would much rather stay in their own home. They'd much rather have family take care of them. And I understand that. That makes perfect sense. And so that's why it's so important to have these conversations before your parents are in a situation where they need that sort of care, whether it's, the nursing home, whether it's you having to stop working, because you can create a plan while people aren't emotional. If you wait until mom has dementia and she's not thinking clearly, and you're telling her, Mom, I just can't stop working. I have my own kids. You have to go here. It's going to be a lot harder conversation to have. Now, even when they're not as emotional about it because you're not facing an emergency, it's still difficult. And I think it's important to discuss what the options are. And so you can, say something like, Mom and Dad, I'd like to talk about this. I'd like to talk about what sort of care you might want if you need it when you get older. Are you expecting me? Are you expecting my brothers and sisters to take care of you? And I understand if you are. And that's much more of an expectation in Europe than it is in the United States. So your parents might say, of course, your family takes care of family. Of course, we're expecting you to take care of us. And then you can say, well, I would love to be able to, but let's talk about how we could make that actually happen. Because I'm young right now. I don't have kids now, but I might. And if I have kids and I am supporting them and I have to stop working to take care of you, how am I going to continue to support my children? You want to ask these questions to get your parents to start thinking about
involved
these issues. Yep. Yes, you want them to think about, oh, well, that's a good point. I think, I won't be too much of a burden. It won't be hard. I'll move in and live with you and I'll help you take care of the kids. That's great, Mom. I know you probably will want to help me take care of the kids, but let's say something happens and you can't help me take care of the kids. Maybe you're having trouble physically and you can't walk or move the way you used to. Or maybe you can't remember things the way you used to. And we have to help you more. We have to help you get up every day and get dressed. We have to help you make your meals. We have to help you bathe. That you won't be able to help my children. We will be helping you, and we might be helping you throughout the day, every single day, which means I have less time to take care of my small children, no time to work. Maybe we could think about, see what sort of options are available. Maybe we should consider hiring someone to help care for you in your home. Would you ever be open to that idea, Mom and Dad? Maybe we could look at what sort of facilities, what sort of nursing care facilities are available and see if there are any of them that you would ever consider living in, only if things got so bad and we couldn't give you care any other way. Not saying let's find one and put you in there today.
Let's go on the web right now and search for that.
But only in the very worst case scenario, when you're very, very ill and you need the care of a medical professional, a doctor, a nurse to look after you. Get them to start thinking about the options and what they might be willing to accept, what sort of care they might be willing to accept, and how you can come up with a plan where maybe you're helping some initially, and if they need more care, they're willing to hire someone to help out in their house so they can stay in their own home. But just discussing these things so that you can have a plan, because if you wait until they're already having issues, you don't have as many options usually. And they're not thinking as rationally. And you can go back to that plan that you've created and say, hey, remember we made this plan. Put it in writing if you have to. Hey, let's write a list of these things, Mom and Dad, things that you're willing to do, things that I can do. And so that if there's an emergency, we can look at this list and see what we agreed to do. It's a reminder, because if they're having issues, they might not remember what they agreed to do when you had that conversation before.
So we talked about a few do's, what we should do, how we should talk, and a little bit of what we shouldn't. So is there anything or any other things which you do not recommend to say or to do regarding this topic?
Yes. So what you don't want to do is to be condescending, to talk down to your parents, to treat your parent like a child, even if your parent might be making bad financial decisions, even if they're already starting to have problems and you know that they're not making good decisions, you don't want to embarrass them, and you don't want to make them feel like you are talking to them as if you were talking to a child, because these are still your parents and they expect you to show them respect. So you need to still be respectful of your parents. So don't be condescending. Don't issue ultimatums. Don't tell your parents, look, if you're not going to talk to me, then I'm not going to help you when you get older. that is
it's a no-go. Yeah.
No, it's not going to help your conversation. So you don't want to do that either. You want to be respectful. And the thing is too, if they don't talk to you, if they don't want to talk to you the first time you try to have this conversation, don't give up. You might need to try several different approaches. It might take several different tries. It might take several years even to get them comfortable. So just kind of find a way to ease your way in, maybe offering to help them with something they don't like doing, like filling out their tax reports. We call it a tax return here, helping them with their taxes, or maybe, helping them with, finding ways to save money on things that they're spending money on, just easing your way in. But don't give up. But you don't want to badger them either. You don't want to every time you talk to them and say, okay, mom and dad, we need to talk about this.
Yeah.
You don't want to talk to me, but I'm going to make you talk to me about this. Don't do that either. That's just going to make them angry.
Yeah. Okay. And what do you think about talking to our kids? So let's say you are the best example, right? You are mom of 3 beautiful kids. So how you teach them things about money and value of the money? Do you have any kind of maybe tips for our listeners, for our audience, how to do it?
Yes. You should start when they're young. Money should be part of your everyday conversations. And the reason I say this is because if you don't teach your kids about money, who will? How are they going to learn? And how are they going to learn about the values that you consider to be important? If you're not teaching them, they're not going to learn it, or they're going to learn it from their friends. And I can tell you that my youngest child, my 8-year-old son, what I hear from him all the time is, oh, my friend has this. Can I have this? I want this.
Yeah.
Always wanting what his friends have. And so for me, that's an opportunity to have a conversation and to tell him, you have a lot. There will always be people who have more. But just because they have more doesn't mean that that's better. We just choose to spend our money on different things. We don't want to buy a lot of toys because we'd rather spend our money on doing something fun, like taking trips, traveling. I mean, you can talk about it when you go shopping for your food. You go to the grocery store, the supermarket, and you talk to your kids about how much things cost. Oh, look, this apple cost $1, and this is how much money we're having to spend on food. And when you're paying, let them know, because now so many of us don't even use cash to pay for things. We use the credit card, the debit card, but letting your kids know we're still paying money for this. This money comes out of our bank account. It's just incorporating these conversations into your daily activities can be a great way to get it started. And the older they get, the more you can start sharing with them, the more you can share about how you're choosing to spend your money. We have to pay for our home. We have to pay for our electricity. We have to pay for our food. That means, we have to make choices about everything that we spend money on. And maybe we want to take a trip, and that means we can't buy every new piece of clothing you want.
Yeah.
Just having those conversations and making it natural so that your kids feel comfortable talking to you. And, they're not always saying, oh, well, hey, my friend has this and my friend's family does this. Why can't we do this? If you make it part of the conversation and your kids understand your values, hopefully they're going to grow up to be smart with money. I can see it working with my daughters already. They save their money. They don't like to spend it on things that they know they're not going to need. So I see the payoff. I'm still working on my son. He's a little bit more of a challenge, but I'm not going to give up.
Good job. Good job. In what age or in what phase would you recommend to talk not only about spending, but also about income of parents? Is there, what do you think?
I think it depends on the child. So I think you don't necessarily have to say how much money you earn, but it's a very good idea to let your children know that you earn enough money to pay for the things you need so that they don't feel nervous and scared that your family is struggling. So letting them know we make enough money to pay for what we need. We have enough extra money to pay for things that we can enjoy, but we still have to make choices and we have to choose to spend our money in the right way. I think it's important to give your kids experience with money. So I don't know if this is popular in Europe, but in America, a lot of children get what's called an allowance. So we give kids money, and some parents ask their children to help out and do things around the house in order to get paid. Some parents don't. It can vary from family to family. We expect our kids to do work to get money. You have to help out, you get paid. And then when you want things, when you want a new toy, you have to use your own money. So it teaches them at an early age to make decisions about the money they have. If you're always paying for everything and they never have experience using money, when they become adults, what are they going to do when they get money? They're going to spend it all right away. And then suddenly when they need money to pay to fix their car or to pay the rent and they don't have any because they spent it all on meals at the restaurant and drinks with their friends, then they're going to be in trouble. And then they're going to come to you and say, Mom, Dad, I need some more money.
Yeah. Cameron, one of the last questions just come up. What about your investments as a mom and dad? How do you see maybe the market? Do you invest only in stocks or maybe also into bonds, in real estate? Not like exact numbers, but just your philosophy about investing.
So I really think one of the smartest ways to invest when you're saving for the long term, when you're saving for retirement, is with what are called index funds. They are like a collection of, essentially it tracks the performance of a stock market or bond market index. And so I have an index fund that tracks the stock market. I think when you're younger, it's better to have more of your money invested in stocks, stock index funds, stock mutual funds, because they grow at a faster rate. And I know that it's scary right now because the stock market has been going down and sometimes up and a lot down. But if you're young, over time, the stock market goes up. So it's going to bounce back. If you put all your money just in the bank, it's not going to earn enough interest. It's not going to grow fast enough. It's not going to keep up with the rate of inflation. And by the time you retire, you're not going to have enough money. So certainly I think stocks are a good way to invest. As you get older, you want to have at least some of your savings in bonds to reduce that risk. My husband, actually, before all of the coronavirus struck and the markets sank, he actually moved his retirement savings to bonds.
Nice.
Which it is because he hasn't lost money. But the problem that you run into when you do that, when you try to time the market, is figuring out when to get back in.
Yeah,
because
that's
he's
true.
too young. He's too young to stay in bonds. He's going to need to switch back to stocks. So now his challenge is figuring out when to get back in. So even though he has avoided losing money, I wouldn't necessarily recommend that strategy. I just kept everything the way it is. And honestly, I have not looked at my retirement account lately. It's only going to make me sad. And so I'm just going to sit here and wait and wait for things to get better and watch it, go back up once things get back to normal.
So you like divided those accounts like to your husband's and to yours, right? And everybody.
Yes.
Yeah, and everybody's like, taking care of his or hers. So yeah, this.
And that's so important though too, because if you are, you shouldn't count on your partner's savings to support you, because you never know what can happen. You never know if there's going to be a divorce or what. And so you need to have your own savings. You need to take care of you. But it's still important to talk to your spouse or your partner, because you need to make sure, if you're going to stay together, that there's enough to support both of you as a couple.
I guess we just find out a topic about your next book, right? How to talk to your husband or wife about money. What do you think?
Actually, I think I thought about that. I thought about doing a whole series about talking to your husband or wife, and I thought about how to talk to kids. But what I actually see, there's a greater need for people who are my age. I am in my 40s, and my generation has done a very bad job of taking care of our finances. That doesn't mean that everyone who is my age has done a bad job, but overall, Generation X is really struggling financially because we are having to care for parents and kids. We don't have a lot of savings. We are paying, some of us are still paying for a college education. And so if I do write another book, I think it will be geared toward helping people who are in midlife take control of their finances and be prepared to live a long, financially secured life without having to count on their kids to support them.
Thank you very much again for your time, and hopefully next time when your next book will come up, we can talk about other topics.
Yes, thank you so much for having me.
Have a good day, and also healthy day to United States. Thank you very much.
Yes, and you too.